how good is the SMG out of bounds? Well, for PvE and for PvP, it's pretty solid for a couple reasons. Number one, it's Arc. For Arc 3.0, it synergizes fantastically. Number two, it's a lightweight SMG, which personally, especially inside of PvP, I very much like this archetype as that contributes to your movement speed being overall faster. Of course, lightweights also have better handling, so these weapons normally just feel a lot better. Now, being an Arc weapon, it's also going to be in that energy slot, which brings up the obvious comparison, which is Funnelweb. And I love Funnelweb, not just because of Void 3.0 and volatile rounds, which was fantastic, but Funnelweb was actually and still is one of the best PvP SMGs in the game. I know it has a 3.7 rating on Light GG inside of PvP. I don't really understand that, but it's very, very good. Today, guys, we will be reviewing Out of Bounds and directly comparing it to Funnelweb. But first, how to get this weapon? It drops inside of Crucible, and I highly advise, guys, actually to reset your rank inside of Crucible. That Valor rank, when you reset, opens up new traits to allow these drops of Out of Bounds and other weapons to have multiple perks to choose from. And you'll be surprised how many of these actually will be dropping on you, especially if you're slotting on a Prosperity mod, where Crucible wins have a chance to drop an additional piece of legendary gear. It rains these weapons. Just make sure whenever you get that Valor maxed out, you do reset, which will tack on extra traits every single time. And if you're lucky, you'll have both a PvP role and a PvE role all in one. With that being said though, what is it about Out of Bounds that everyone loves so much? Well, first up, it's an Omlon SMG. I think there's a few things that Omlon does right. Number one, they make damn good fusion rifles. They also make good pulse rifles. And we know certain foundries have strengths, like Vice makes excellent linears. Hake makes great auto rifles, aka Half Dan. And one of my favorite Omlon SMGs in the game was, of course, Stochastic Variable. Now, I know Stochastic is kind of garbage right now, but at one time, this weapon was the go-to weapon. But considering that Stochastic is also a lightweight Arc SMG, personally, at least from my experience, Out of Bounds has replaced Stochastic for me. Now, a couple things that really makes Out of Bounds good, despite both of these weapons being Omlon weapons, Out of Bounds came out at the perfect time. Since the launch of Witch Queen, we got origin traits, and the Omlon Fluid Dynamic Origin trait is really good. The top half of the magazine has up to 20 stability, as well as an increase of 30 reload. Now, the stat does decrease as the magazine gets lower, and of course, it disappears completely at 50% of your mag, but man, having that increased stability at the top end. But if we were to actually sit down and work the numbers out, even a high range Out of Bounds roll could reach up to almost 75 stability, which is very nice. 100% superior in comparison to the likes of Funnelweb. And having that extra stability really adds up. And when we include things like Perpetual Motion, which is a trait that's available both on Out of Bounds and Funnelweb, we're talking an extra 15 stability on top of that. Technically, you could have max stability on Out of Bounds, although I wouldn't suggest it. Range is going to be the thing you're fighting against the most here. And if you want these SMGs to do well for you, you really do want to get to that 20 meter mark. There's too many ways, and you got too many Titans running around with Juggernaut Shield. Closing that gap is easier now than ever, which is why you need that extra meter, maybe meter and a half, to grant you some wiggle room. Now, in a side-by-side comparison between Funnelweb and Out of Bounds, where Funnelweb does win out is in the base stats. It has more range, base, more stability, more handling, as well as more reload speed. Where it lacks, a little bit less in airborne effectiveness, one less aim assist, and that's pretty much it. For the most part, Funnelweb stat-wise is the superior weapon. Again though, it's Omlon Fluid Dynamics that's really making up for those lacking stats, which really takes us to the rolls on the weapon. When we actually do a side-by-side comparison here, when you look at Out of Bounds, it has way more rolls. It has a ton of stats. There's a reason why resetting your Valor and adding more trait combinations is so important here, guys. You need it, considering how many traits are available on this weapon. And you have fantastic combinations like Perpetual Motion and Rangefinder, Moving Target Rangefinder, Dynamic Sway, Tap the Trigger is also on this weapon, some Killing Wind action, and then inside of PvE, you've got Golden Tricorn with Subsistence, which by the way is really good this season considering we have so many Arc-based builds. Surrounded is also found on this weapon. You've got Adrenaline Junkie and Demolitionist, Grave Robber and Swashbuckler, lots of great options here. Funnelweb doesn't have nearly that many roles. Matter of fact, the only thing Funnelweb really has going for it inside of PvE is either that Adrenaline Junkie Subsistence role or that Frenzy Subsistence role, which is still very, very good, but no major damage perks. Where it's like Out of Bounds has Kill Clip staring right at us. The problem is with Kill Clip, if you were to do Kill Clip instead of Rangefinder, which you can, you'll be losing 2 whole meters of range, which can hurt. I'm fine with Kill Clip on other SMGs, most notably things like Shayura's Wrath. Now, Shayura, you can get away with a kill clip roll simply because it has so much range to begin with. Hell, Shayura, with half decent range and a ranged masterwork, can reach up to 26 meters with no need of rangefinder. So that's kind of my dilemma there with some of these lightweight SMGs. You almost need rangefinder. And on Funnelweb, that's exactly what I like. I love my rangefinder roll. The combination of perpetual motion rangefinder is also fantastic. I've played with it before. I personally don't have that roll. I want it. I have a killing wind rangefinder roll, which is still very good, but I would 100% prefer that perpetual motion rangefinder roll. In terms of consistency, in my opinion, on mouse and keyboard, Funnelweb is the superior SMG. On controller though, out of bounds, it feels so good. It felt so good, guys, that I actually got on an old Xbox, played at 30 frames per second, and out of bounds was still popping off. Like that right there. That's the test. If it can survive 30 FPS against everybody else playing at 60 plus frames, and I'm rocking like 70 something field of view, that is impressive. That's a testament to the weapon. And of course, aim assist. But regardless, the weapon. So if you're a controller player, I completely understand why you like out of bounds. But this is where the intangibles start to come into play. One thing that I think Funnelweb has that to me makes it an easier weapon to track targets on is just having that thick reticle. It's got that recluse style reticle. And to me, it's just easier to snag those shots. On top of that, it also comes with Vice Stinger. Now I know Amalon has the superior origin trait because of the increase in stability, but there are many times, especially with SMGs, where you're suddenly out of shots. Funnelweb though, no problem. You got Vice Stinger. It's auto reloading your weapon as you're doing damage to enemies. There's a ton of SMGs in the game, and I would definitely say out of bounds is one of the best ones, really, but it is not the best. Like other lightweight SMGs, you will be sitting around that 0.67 time to kill value, which is fantastic. And it only requires 9 crits and 2 body. So not only are you looking at a fast TTK, but you also have forgiveness. At the same time though, my experience is if I could choose the God roll, I would choose Funnelweb over out of bounds. And it might be because out of bounds has that reticle that just has a little too much sway for me, a little too much rock. It's just a dot. It's an aesthetic thing, but one of which I don't really care for. And there were multiple times mid gunfights where I would lose track of enemies because of that reticle on out of bounds. With that being said though, guys, this is still a fantastic submachine gun, but it's not the best. It is not the clear winner, at least for me. And what sucks even more than that is everybody knows everyone's using out of bounds inside of PvP. I had so many people put on Wrist Runner, and I don't care how good your Arc SMG is. Up against a Wrist Runner, you die. I know I'm being very harsh on arguably one of your favorite weapons because I know every PvP player right now loves out of bounds. And for those that are actually wanting to get this weapon and go for the God roll, my suggestion would be small bore, or you can just do hammer forged rifling. Don't do full bore. You're gonna hurt your stability and handling way too much. Either high caliber rounds or ricochet rounds. And the reason why I mentioned high cal, I know ricochet rounds increases that stability, but you do already have Omlon fluid dynamics. So high cal offering that extra flinch is really, really nice, especially on a weapon that peppers as much as this one. The God roll that I would want would be perpetual motion rangefinder. To me, that is just the most consistent roll you can get on this weapon. I know there's dynamic sway reduction, but understand dynamic sway takes 0.6 seconds to actually kick in, or at least fully maximize its effect. With that being said, considering that the weapon has a TTK value of 0.67, gunfights will be concluded, and considering this doesn't have the Vice origin trait, it's not like you're going to be running into multi-kills with this thing without having to reload. 9 times out of 10, you will stop and reload with this SMG. It's not like it's got a terrible mag size. I mean, it sits at 36, which isn't awful, but these are bullet hoses. You'll be amazed how many shots get wasted. That would be, though, the PvP God roll for me. And then, of course, like Golden Tricorn, Demolitionist inside of PvE, or maybe even a subsistence roll with it. And for those that really want to be super bold about it, that Kill Clip Perpetual Motion roll. I mean, you can rock that. Just understand your weapon becomes limited. As in, don't expect to be hitting much outside of 19.5 meters. Not only do these SMGs run into damage fall off, they also run into damage stickiness or a lack of once you start to reach that level. Range really starts to dip off, damage starts to fall off, and simultaneously, so does the stickiness of your weapon. That's primarily why I do like Rangefinder on this gun. It kind of allows your weapon to stay consistent and do full damage in that 20 to 21 meter range. So guys, try it out for yourselves. Good luck on the grind. Rock that prosperity mod. And just because I'm saying out of bounds is overrated does not mean I'm saying it's not a good weapon, but it's not the best SMG. Stop it. Quit that. We got Terrible. We got Huckleberry. We got Shayura, Borrowed Time, which by the way, I still haven't even played with the God roll of that one. We will at some point. And of course, Funnelweb, which is not a PvE only weapon. It is a fantastic PvP SMG. I feel so alone in this, right? I go inside a Crucible, I rock my Funnelweb, and nobody else uses this SMG, and I'm like, why? And it may be because the God roll for Funnelweb inside of PvP is just so damn rare. And you got a point, because I too have had trouble getting the God roll for this weapon, and at this point I've given up. But even my base roll of Killing Wind and Rangefinder, I'm still so impressed with this SMG. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.